Greetings and welcome to the Home Slice. This is a standard intro. If you already know what's up with my 40mm Manila Rope testing, the ANDE rope test, then you can skip to this time listed on screen. This is where the actual edge test begins. If you haven't been here before, then you've caught me in the middle of a testing series where I'm taking Victorinox knives because they're simple steel that's mainly just steel. There's not a bunch of extra alloys and carbide things going on in them. And I'm testing what different sharpening stones do to them. I'm testing fine, medium, and coarse stones individually. Then I'm taking the best from those and I'm making what's called a dual grit edge. If you're new to the channel, a dual grit edge is where you sharpen one side coarse or medium and the other side of the edge you sharpen fine. It has some really interesting characteristics. Usually it creates an aggressive edge that lasts longer than it normally would with either coarse or fine, with some exceptions, which we're testing to find out. Anyway, my test consists of, I've got a little goofy rig that I slice through a 1 centimeter thick sisal rope, and it's on a 45-degree wedge. It's intended to transfer that force down, and then I measure how many kilograms of pressure it took to slice through the rope while holding the rope vertical. That's intended to take forward motion and quantify how much pressure it took to slice through. This gives you some rough idea of edge aggression. The next test is to cut through a 40mm thick Manila rope, and then I test on a Best machine tester to test how keen and nice the edge stayed. I do that until it's over 400 grams on the Best tester, checking with microscope and checking to see when it loses shaving capability in between tests. After 3, I will hammer the edge into a pine piano leg, and that's just to see if any of the edges break on impact. There are certain sharpening methods I've found that create an edge that's not as robust to impact tasks, and I want to kind of weed those out because for a working edge, I want it to be reasonably durable. Anyway, that's what we're testing for today. In just a second, we'll skip right over to the test footage, and I will let you know what the finishing stone that we're actually testing was.
What's up, guys? Coming at you today, testing the EZE-Lap 1200 grit stone. I should mention that I've found it's helpful to do a little bit more stropping than I was doing at this point since this point. And so this starting point of 165 could be kind of a warning sign if you're using a medium grit diamond stone. We'll get to that when I show you the microscope footage. Anyway, here in the slicing aggression test, I freeze it at the highest rating, which is a 4.6. 4.6 is not very good compared to the edges that we've been doing, and I didn't know what I was looking at when I first looked at this because I was so new to the microscope. But if you look out at the apex, there's sort of a double bright line, and I do believe that that means there is a little bit of a wire edge left on this. This is further evidenced because when I turn the knife over the other direction, it's non-reflective, as if it's bent over in the opposite direction. Or said another way, there's a bright reflection one side, and then it's sort of a darker shadowy, indicating a change of angle when it's laid flat on the same surface. So I think there's a wire edge on this. I didn't really realize that at the time because I was so new to the microscope. The edge really kept its aggression pretty well, but it was no longer shaving after the first pass. A pretty bad reading after the first pass of 370. I mean, it's not the worst in the world, but oftentimes when you start out that close to 400, you don't have long to go. But with the second reading, we only get up to 384. And I think the cutting experience with this 1200 grit edge was surprisingly difficult, and I think I would attribute that mostly to the fact that I do believe I left a bit of a bendable, flexible wire edge at the apex. Now that said, these diamond plates make a really aggressive edge, and even after the 3 passes, it's still under 400. So there is something to be said for really aggressive stones. I've just frozen this at the highest reading, which is a 9.9. And although that's quite high, our original number was not that great, so the aggression lost doesn't look very bad. However, I would say that going from 2.5 kilos up to 10 kilos is not the best transition. You want to start out a little lower than that. Here you can see that the rope cutting has not worn away that bent apex, and it is still functioning as a cutting edge, though it's not the most durable thing in the world, as we'll come to see shortly. Ah, yes, now we come to the great foe of wire edges, getting hammered by a 5 kg dumbbell 9 times into a pine piano leg. It appears to come out unscathed due to the fact that I once again am sitting up on the rim of the best machine because the hammering with the dumbbell, I realized in this video, was actually shaking the pedestal off. Once we get it realigned and reading properly, we have lost a whopping 220 grams off of the best reading, which has got to be one of the worst in the testing so far. Not that it's entirely the stone's fault, I should have done a better job deburring. Now the edge doesn't look horrible until I lift it up and try to get it at a different angle, and when I do it becomes quite shaky, and I quite apologize for that. But you will notice that when I get up close and kind of turn the knife toward us, there's a little bit of a waviness inside the impact zone where the edge has sort of wandered a little bit back and forth, and that's pretty characteristic for a wire edge when it faces any form of impact. Again, I'm sorry, this is terribly shaky. If you want to see the last video where I tested out the Spyderco Ultrafine edge, I'll put the link on screen now. For all the rest of you, I'll just say peace out from the home slice. Bye.